Hello, everyone. Sorry for missing the videos last week. I forgot. Um, but if you look at the two cases that I've asked you to read for this week, they're really actually very different cases that have to do with different aspects of the code and don't have much to do with one another. The one case, 76 6, does have some obvious relationship with last week's um, case, 79 8. And what's going on here? Both of them are fifth canon cases. If you take a look at the fifth canon, uh, Canon 5 says that engineers shall avoid deceptive acts. I think that the NSPE code is extremely interesting, and any code of ethics that has a history is interesting because if we read something like that, avoid deceptive acts, it's very general, and it would seem to make perfect sense. Professionals should not be deceptive. But if we look at the Section 2 of the code, rules of practice, which just reinforce, right? You've got rules of practice. The major sections are just restatements of the first five canons. But under those restatements are specifications of the canon. So what I think is interesting is that the very general avoid deceptive acts in its specifications gets much more concrete. Um, the first subsection here, subsection A, is about not misrepresenting your education, your accomplishments, your qualifications in general, which is interesting. And the second one is really about money. It's about gift giving and how that gift giving can corrupt the profession. So, I mean, what's interesting is to me is that that's history, right? That is, if there's something like this in the code, specific enjoinders not to falsify your qualifications, specific enjoinders not to give or receive any gifts or contributions which may appear to a reasonable person to be given in order to influence the award of a contract. If these things are there, it's because this is the kind of thing that's happened. This is the kind of thing that's come up more than once. It's a typical problem in professional practice, ethical problem. So we're looking at these cases, which are cases having to do with gift giving. Last week's case, 79-8, is extremely interesting, and I think it's extensively quoted, isn't it, in this week's case? Pretty sure. Trouble here. I think it's extensively quoted. Maybe it's another case. But the issue is somebody who has an ongoing business relationship with somebody else, two engineers, one of whom is in private practice, and the other is a representative of a government agency, a water district. That the engineer in private practice gives a substantial gift to the engineer who's the head of the water district, and the question is whether it's ethical. Of course, they said it wasn't ethical, right? But the interesting thing is, to me, is why, on what basis? Well, there is the basis of the code, but of course the code has to be interpreted. The one thing that they don't want to do here in last week, I'm referring to last week's case, 79-8. One thing that they don't want to do here, the BER, is to say that no gifts can ever be given in business practice, engineering practice. Because they said that would be unreasonable, because the giving of token gifts is a well-established part of business practice universally in America, right? And it's all very outdated. I say, well, giving somebody a cigar or a desk calendar, which is not like your typical gift here, but you can sort of fill that in. I don't know, man, a pen, a keychain, swag, crap, basically, crap gifts like that, which are tokens, right? Are something that they don't think that it would be necessary to ban, right? And also picking up the tab occasionally, a commonplace and well accepted in the mores of our society. Uh, so they don't want to ban gifts entirely. Right? The question is, well, what would be an acceptable gift and what wouldn't? And that's where things get, I think, extremely interesting. In last week's case, 79-8, because there is no clear criterion or standard of what would be an acceptable as opposed to an unacceptable gift. They leave it as a matter of good taste. Right? That is, if the gift is in good taste, it's probably okay. If its gift is not in good taste, it shouldn't be given. And what does that mean? Good taste? Well, I mean, this is where things get really interesting. I mean, taste is not something that is. There's no rules, official rules of taste. It's all about people's sensibilities. And what their intuition or their sensibilities tell them is appropriate and fitting, and what would go outside the bounds of that. Um, I guess it's all, again, it's about sort of having a communal sense of these things. If those two engineers, if one of them had picked up lunch when they both got corned beef sandwiches, they wouldn't have taken the case, right? Wouldn't have become a case. It became a case because there is a question of the taste, which is basically the fittingness, the appropriateness, the taste of that gift, this rifle. Now, I don't know who gives a gun as a gift, but that's not important. Important thing is that it's in 1979 is worth $500, right? Which is I don't know, $1,200-$1,500 today, something like that. I mean, it's a substantial thing, and then the question is it ethical? Another thing that I want to do is to pretend to be able to read the mind of the engineers in question. That is to say, well, really dependent upon the intent with which it was given. No, it doesn't. And I think that given the discussion in 79-8, the code has been changed on this point. If you look at 2.5b, engineers shall not offer, give, solicit, or receive, either directly or indirectly, any contribution to influence the award of contract by public authority, or which may be reasonably construed by the public as having the effect or intent of influencing the award of the contract. That is, I think that last clause was added later to say, well, it's not just banning gifts that have the intent of influencing the award of a contract. It banning gifts that may give a reasonable person the appearance of it, or give the appearance of it, so that a reasonable person may suspect that it's given. And the question is, does the gift giving in this case fit that? And they say yes. And that, again, that's a judgment call, right? That gift is in bad taste. It's not proper. Between people who have this kind of relationship, which they both have to keep in mind. They're both engineers. They're both subject to the code of the professional ethics that they share. And they have an ongoing business relationship in which one has the power to award contracts that the other one wants. A substantial gift like this between them, even if it doesn't affect the influence or doesn't influence the award of this contract, would give a reasonable person a suspicion that it would appear to. I mean, if you just knew that anybody who is working or hoping to get a government contract gave a substantial gift to somebody whose job it is to award those contracts, would have reasonable suspicions that that gift was given with the intent of getting future work. So it's really a matter of a judgment call. And what's really kind of interesting is when we move from a local thing to this week's case about gifts of foreign officials. What are standards of taste? Do they apply internationally? I mean, isn't a standard of taste something that's dependent upon agreement of a local community? So we'll look at that next.